Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down a large storm that is about to bring even more problems to the eastern tier of the United States over the next 48 hours, as this storm is not done yet. We have more severe weather that's ahead tomorrow across areas in the southeast, the mid-Atlantic region, and as well as the Ohio Valley, and even maybe some areas in the northeast, with damaging winds, isolated large hail, and a few more tornadoes being possible. In addition to this, we're going to have another large storm early next week that could be one of the biggest storms that we've had so far in 2024 in terms of its intensity. We actually could have a significant severe weather event on Monday of next week in parts of the Great Plains. I'll be giving you the latest breakdown on everything that you need to know in this forecast, and let's begin first with what's happening right now in the United States today. And we have a large storm, as you can see, in the southeast United States. It's a very large complex of showers and thunderstorms, and many of these have been producing severe weather today. Unfortunately, we saw some widespread damaging winds from Texas all the way back into Florida now, and this complex of storms has caused a lot of significant damage, at least to trees. Even some homes have been damaged from several various tornadoes that happened throughout the day today. I do hope everybody stayed safe out there. Hopefully you guys are doing all right, but obviously make sure that your friends and family are doing all right as well if you're right along the Gulf Coast, as that area of storms, by the way, is not even done yet. We still have lots of thunderstorms ongoing at this hour in Florida, and this will continue to move to the east. It will eventually weaken this evening, but we are eventually going to get some severe weather in the southeast again tomorrow, and as well as the Ohio Valley out of this particular storm. So it's not done quite yet, and we are going to see a few more tornadoes in addition to some damaging winds. Behind all of this, it's nicer weather overall. If you're back over in the central or northern plains, just some cloud cover, and that's really about it. Back down in areas like Texas, we are beginning to dry out in many areas, and I would expect a fantastic weekend for you before we have that next chance for severe weather early next week. With all that being said, unfortunately, we do have more severe weather ahead, and this is going to really exist primarily for tomorrow across much of the eastern tier of the United States. Notice as of right now, the Storm Prediction Center has an enhanced risk for severe weather across areas in eastern Ohio. That is a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. It also includes parts of West Virginia and about 1 or 2 counties there in northeast Kentucky. With all that being said, we also have a slight risk for severe weather from Kentucky back into Pennsylvania, and another slight risk back down in the Carolinas, Georgia, and as well as Florida. Now, I do want to mention that this particular severe weather threat is interesting. One, because the enhanced risk is not really that big, but two, this enhanced risk is actually going to be driven by a tornado risk, believe it or not. We usually have a severe weather risk like this that is typically driven towards damaging winds or large hail, but in this case, we're actually having a tornado-driven tornado risk tomorrow. Now, I'm not really concerned about strong tornadoes at this point. I think overall tomorrow's threat will not be nearly as concerning as today when it comes to the tornado risk, and I say that because the tornadoes that we'll see tomorrow will likely be on the weaker side of things with any tornadoes that develop. But obviously, make sure that you have multiple ways to receive alerts and have a tornado action plan in place just in case if you are across these areas, especially in that localized higher threat of tornadoes in areas like Ohio and West Virginia. And back in southeast parts of the United States like Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina, I wouldn't rule out an isolated strong tornado, but I think the risk is low there. And even in the Ohio Valley, it's not impossible that we could see a strong tornado. It's just a very low risk comparatively to today. So just keep that in mind. The damaging wind risk, once again, is actually pretty close in terms of statistical probabilities from the tornado risk. So once again, very interesting stuff there, but some isolated to widely scattered damaging winds will be possible. And then once we go into Monday of next week, things get really crazy because we already have a day 6 enhanced risk for severe weather that has been issued in parts of central Oklahoma, southern Kansas, and northern parts of Texas. Obviously, this looks like it's not that large, but the Storm Prediction Center has mentioned that they left the enhanced risk really small due to a high amount of uncertainty of where the greatest risk of severe weather will be. So with that being said, this will likely grow in size as we get closer, and this could easily be a very significant severe weather event, but it also could change in between now and then. Since we are still 6 days out, computer model data could very easily change, but we could see a tornado outbreak. We also could just see a severe weather outbreak. We might not see either. It's going to depend on computer model trends here over the next few days, but I do want to make sure that you're aware that Monday could be a bit more significant. We'll be talking about that here in just a few minutes. Here's the timing for the rest of today. Again, showers and storms will continue down in southern Alabama, southwest Georgia, and the Florida Panhandle. And then once we go later into this evening into the overnight hours, most of the showers and storms will continue overall severe weather is primarily going to be some isolated damaging winds, isolated large hail, and maybe a couple of tornadoes. By the time we go into Thursday morning, those showers and storms continue to move to the east. I'm not super duper confident tomorrow on some sort of significant tornado risk existing, mainly due to the fact I do think a lot of the convection that we're going to have is going to be overall very disorganized activity comparatively to what we saw today. So with that being said, there will be a chance at least for a couple of tornadoes, some damaging winds, and isolated large hail, but I think overall the risk of severe weather is overall going to be lower tomorrow. Once we go into the afternoon hours, most of the storms are offshore. The only severe weather that we'll have left will be in areas like eastern North Carolina, eastern South Carolina, and back into central Florida, where a couple of storms may still be producing some damaging winds, and as well as maybe an isolated tornado. And by the time we go into the evening hours, most of the severe weather is done in those areas. Now, the Ohio Valley is a little bit different. We're going to have a little bit more of an elevated tornado risk, especially in eastern parts of Ohio. This is a significant tornado parameter around 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Notice those values, they're much higher, around 1 to 2 across areas in eastern Ohio. That indicates at least a low to medium risk of tornadoes across areas in eastern and southern Ohio, and that risk will continue throughout the afternoon. The threat of tornadoes really goes off after sunset, so most of this tornado threat will be between about 3 and 7 o'clock tomorrow. So here's the timing. We'll have that trough moving across Kentucky, and this storm is going to take a big turn to the north, producing the chance for some showers and storms, and then eventually we're going to be watching for a tornado risk between about 2 to 7 o'clock or so across areas in Ohio, western parts of Virginia, and as well as northeast Kentucky. Main concern will still be damaging winds and a few tornadoes, and eventually as we get closer to 5 to 6 o'clock, those storms are moving north, and eventually by 7 to 8 o'clock, storms are moving across eastern Ohio, and that tornado risk will drop off exponentially as we go past 8 o'clock tomorrow, especially across areas like western Pennsylvania. I already mentioned that this storm is going to take a large turn, especially off to the northeast over the next 24 to 48 hours, but one other thing I want to point out is that this storm is technically actually going to intensify when it comes to its pressure levels. Right now it's at 997 millibars. If we go 24 hours from this exact time right now, it will actually be around 987 millibars, and it will continue to intensify as we go into Friday morning as low as 980 millibars. So this is actually going to strengthen quite a bit, and this is going to lead to a lot more rainfall across the northeast and as well as the Great Lakes region. So overall, Thursday night into Friday, it is going to be a rainy and muggy day overall, and then once we go into late Friday into Saturday, this will move to the northeast with maybe a little bit of snow back up in Canada. But the reason why I point this out to you is because this actually will get pretty close to being a quote-unquote bomb cyclone, which is when we have a low pressure system drop 24 millibars over a 24-hour period. So it's not going to be far from that overall. Now, as we go into next week, that's when things become very interesting with the Great Plains, as there will be a strong trough that is going to evolve as it moves over the Rocky Mountains, and by the time we go into Monday evening, we will have to watch for the potential for some very significant severe weather in the Central Plains and even the Southern Plains, where all modes of severe weather may occur. Notice this as we go into Monday night into Tuesday morning. That area of storms grows in size. The trough becomes very strong. A 978 millibar trough is obviously pretty rare for this time of the year. Once we go into late Tuesday, more showers and storms in the Midwest will be possible, but it doesn't look to be significant if you're in the Midwest. Once we go into Wednesday and Thursday, another trough will likely enter the United States where more severe weather may occur. This remains very uncertain as we are still several days out, but we may see some more severe weather from the Southern Plains back into areas like Michigan. With all that being said, definitely watch Monday very closely, and even parts of the middle of next week if you're in like the Midwest, Ohio Valley, or Southern Plains. We will have frequent updates on this. Obviously, again, we are still several days out. Things could change, but as of right now, signs are pointing to that being one of the more significant events that we've had here over the last few months. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like the button down below and subscribe if you've not already.